Hey folks, I wanted to do a follow-up on the crash of the Emmaselle 2 and answer some questions I've gotten. I've got a lot of emails and a lot of comments, and I wanted to kind of roll them into a video and try to make some sense of this, because I think my crash video, if you haven't seen it, go back and see it or watch it. I don't think I got some things pretty clear. So the Emmaselle 2 had 112 flights on it, 212 flights, about 195 of those was with a Castle speed controller. I'd upgraded to a Jetty Spin 300 and had quite a few successful flights on it without any problems. If you don't know anything about the Emmaselle 2, I've had it since, I've been flying it since 2018. It's a 188-inch span. It weighs about 61 pounds. It flies like a Cub. It actually has a wing loading between a glider and a trainer, because, you know, when you think about that much wing, it had a custom wing I designed that had a higher angle of attack in the inboard section than the outboard, so it was a very hard plane to stall. It flew like a floater. I had all kinds of different videos I did with this, where we had the onboard footage, like at the beginning with the robotic baby. I did stall testing where I had yarn on the wings. You can go back and watch those videos. But the plane was very successful, and I've been flying it since 2018. But what I want to do is I want to dive into a little bit more of the control system, because I think there's some confusion that came out. So when you think about my receiver, it had two redundant batteries with a little switching device that would pick the best battery. I had two onboard BECs. The reason I had those onboard BECs was because I wanted to use higher voltage batteries and bring them down to 6 volts to run my S-Bus, Futaba S-Bus control system. There was no BEC on the electronic speed control. I want to make that clear. This was not an electronic speed controller feeding back bad energy or bad electricity and burning up my receiver. It was an onboard fire. The fire could have been in the motor and burned those wires, did the same, could have been the same result. But I had brakes on this, okay? So actually the way I need to describe this best is each BEC ran its own cluster of servos that were run by S-Bus. I had a digital device that basically is a decoder called an SPD1 that Futaba makes, that takes the S-Bus digital signal and turns it into a regular digital signal. So my two brakes were regular digital servos. All the other servos, except for the baby's robotic head moving, were Futaba S-Bus servos. And the thing is that I never dreamt in all my life I would have a fire on board that would melt wires together. Okay, if the ESC would have just failed, which it did. I mean, my prop actually stopped turning and you need to go back and watch my crash report, because I'm not going to dig into everything that happened, but basically the ESC lost its timing for some reason with the motor, and I was in the air. I saw the prop stop. I knew I was in trouble, but I didn't realize I had a fire. I just thought I had a dead stick landing. My friend was following with a drone, saw smoke, told me there's smoke. I'll talk about this again in a minute, but basically I knew I was in trouble. So my receiver was set up like this, and that device below it is that switching device that would pick the best battery that was powering the receiver. That way, if I had a battery completely die, or even if that battery dead shorted, the other battery would have kept feeding my receiver. And here are the two BECs. Now, some of that dust in there is from the fire extinguisher I used to put out the fire. But this system, folks, worked beautifully for many years and was rock solid, okay? It was the fact that I had, and I've had several people say to me, why didn't you have a power distribution system that did A, B, or C? You're right. A power distribution system that could have isolated the ESC wire would have probably been a very smart thing to do. And in hindsight, and with what I know now, I will always have a second receiver that will operate my ESC. Okay. But when you have a fire that is this strong, and I got questions about these wires here. The wire that's right in the center of the image right here is the wire that goes into the ESC that controlled my throttle. The wire on the right-hand side was actually wires for an onboard probe, or not a probe, whatever you want to call it. So I could see what my voltage was on my batteries. I would know how much battery I had left. So I had telemetry. That's a telemetry wire on the right there. But the wire in the center, when that melted together, it dead shorted my receiver. And folks, you know, I've been flying since 1979. On a gas engine airplane, this could never have happened unless there was a fire in the engine cowling, but there would still not be a wire running from your receiver to your engine on a gasser, except maybe on the servo that runs your throttle. And now if that wire melted, sure, you could probably destroy, you know, the receiver. But the heat, I mean, the amount of fire that happened so quickly under this cowling, folks, must have just been incredible, because it melted these wires that were for the battery leads. I mean, it vaporized it. And essentially, you don't have anything at that point. And that was unfortunate. Now, the plane, I've had a lot of people ask, can I repair the plane? Sure. The fuselage is fine. The wings are gone. The cowling is maybe repairable. I don't know. I might make a new cowling. The 3D printed engine needs new bottom jugs because they were destroyed. The top rear jugs, like right here, you can see they started to melt. The fire was pretty intense under this cowling. And it was being fed, you know, fresh air, because I put the nose down to try to get on the ground as quick as I could. You can still see the fire extinguisher dust inside there. But folks, overall, I just want to do this follow-up to make sure that people understood that this plane met all of the requirements under the LMA1 for the AMA, which might want to be rethought a little bit. You know, we might want to rethink. Myself and the model aviation community might want to rethink on, you know, an electric, or, you know, folks, look, if a ducted fan that weighs 35 pounds is going 150 mile an hour and had an ESC take out your receiver, I believe that could be just as dangerous as my 61-pound airplane that flies like a Cub. Here's my 3D radio I had taken off and inspected, and it's pretty goofed up. It really is, folks. But I think I can salvage it, no problem. But I want to I want to go back just for a minute and talk about the actual moment that I lost control of the radio, because I've had a lot of people ask me what went through my head. Okay, so this is normal speed right here. Okay, and you can see the smoke trailing. And now I couldn't see that smoke from where I was standing, but my friend following in the drone here could definitely see the smoke. Now, in my crash video, my report, I did not show the plane impacting the tents because people were jumping out of the way. And that just makes me uncomfortable showing that, because somebody, luckily, they didn't get hurt, but they could have gotten hurt. But I want to describe right here what happened. So this is from the drone, and the drone is just getting ready to turn toward me because I had just lost my engine. I yelled dead stick, and my buddy Eamon Kelly is standing right next to me, and he immediately got his drone behind me, and he said, "You got smoke." And folks, immediately I started a left-hand turn away from the crowd in the pits. Okay, and you can see me turning here. And I felt I had a good turn established. I felt I was going to get on the center line of the runway. And I was going to basically just, you know, fly the plane into the ground or land. And then I would have to go out and try to put out the fire. But I didn't know the fire was going to melt those wires together. Excuse me. And then as the plane lost radio, the plane always had a little bit of right-hand tendency. I was still doing everything to try to fly the plane to the crash here. But I had no radio, and I knew the plane was coming down really, really quick. And I thought when it hit the ground here, it'd probably take out the landing gear and the plane would just slide on its belly. But the landing gear survived this impact right there. And you can see the wings flex down a little bit. I've watched this over and over. The plane sit so hard that wings actually flex down about 6 inches on each wingtip. And when I saw it rolling here, you know, I was desperately hitting the brakes on the radio, and I knew I was screwed. I mean, I'll never forget, folks, realizing it's crossing what we call the flag line, and there was no stop on this airplane. Now, keep in mind, it was only going about 15 to 20 mile an hour. It was not going like 60 or 80 mile an hour when it hit the tents. It was actually not going that fast. People had time to get out of the way. Like I said in my earlier video, I did damage I damaged a plane, a couple of tents, offered to fix them for everybody. When you look at the front right here, the top of the cowling had a pretty ferocious fire, and if you watch the crash video, you see the flames coming out of the top of this. But this is all rebuildable, folks. I'm just glad nobody got hurt. I mean, that was my biggest absolute fear, is that this plane got away from me. When you're flying an airplane, no matter if it's a turbine, no matter what it is, it can hurt a person. You know, a lot of people say, well, giant airplanes are so dangerous. I've seen people fly turbines 200 mile an hour down the runway just 20 feet in front of us, and that's made me nervous too. I'm not putting anybody down here. I'm just saying, relatively speaking, folks, we just got to be aware of what we're doing with model aviation, okay? Now, I want to end this video with showing just a little bit more air video of the Emmaselle flying. My buddy Eamon Kelly chasing it with his drone and just having some fun. This is a different video at the end than the crash video, but I just wanted to share it. So rock on, everybody. Please like and subscribe. And if I get a lot more questions, I'm going to try to answer them. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.